All right.
It is Tighten Up the Podcast, and we saved our best for last. It is the season 1 finale of Tighten Up, and we get a chance to celebrate one of the great teams, arguably the greatest team that has ever come through Calihan Hall. And we get a chance to talk about the one, the only Dick Vitale. Dickie,
Yay.
we are celebrating him here, and we have had the good fortune of being graced with so many of the players that he coached along the way. Welcome up. It's another edition of Tighten Up the Podcast. I'm Dan Hasty. Thanks so much for joining us throughout the entire season. We've had some great guests along the way, but this one, we haven't even started yet, and I think it might already be my favorite. So allow me to introduce to you some of the people we have gotten an opportunity to spend some time with here today. First of all, it is so great to have Wilbert McCormick here. We've had him on the show. He is the first one that we've had and the only one of this group that we've been able to have. He also helped us deliver Nate Johnson last season and maybe in some ways this year as well. Wilbert, welcome back. Great to see you.
Thank you, Dan. Welcome back also. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Kevin Cassetta is also here. Great to see Kevin coming to us all the way from Atlanta. Kevin, thank you very much for spending some time with all of us.
You bet. Anytime. Thanks, Dan.
Terry Tyler is in the building. Terry.
Hey. How y'all doing?
Big team.
Hey, Titan Territory is back in town.
That's right. And last but not least, we will have, we are expecting Laval Perry at one point throughout the course of this, but as I was told, much like when they were playing, they decided to start without him. So that is all right. We will make that work as we roll along. But Jerry Ganane is also here. Jerry, thank you very much. Live from Chicago.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Good to be with everybody.
All right. So,
yes,
gosh, there's just so many directions we can go. But when was the last time that all of you saw each other, whether it be in person or virtually like this? I'll start with you, Terry.
The last time we were all together was when the court was when they named Dick, the court after Dick and everything. That's when we were all together. Well, for me anyway, that's when we were all together. I saw everybody.
And obviously that was a big deal. And, Dickie V's legend continues into today. And I am curious because I don't get a chance to get you guys all in the same place at the same time, but I know all of you had a special relationship with Dick Vitale. And the reason that I can assume that is because to know him is to have a special connection with him. And, whether it was the fact that he brought you there to that school, or it was, in some cases, the fact that he also took you to the NBA with him. I mean, there's just so many different cases of how you guys have forged this special relationship with Dick Vitale. So if you can, I'd just love to have all of you guys speak on that. So Kevin, why don't we start with you?
Well, the relationship, I guess, just like all the other guys, Coach Vitale recruited us in high school, and I think he came to, I don't know, T probably knows better, 7, 8, 9 games, high school games. And I was playing in a tournament in New York with a Lithuanian group, and he even came to that tournament too. So it was more of, you knew he had a true interest in you as a person and as a player. And then he wanted to build what he wanted to build. He had an idea and a thought and a direction. And he was one that pursued what he wanted and the goals that he had placed for himself and the players around him. So, and I know we'll talk about this again and again, but it's more about what he always talked about in practice and meetings, the game of life. So I think that was what he talked about more than actually X and O's.
It kind of feels like he was ahead of his time, especially nowadays. You think about how important it is for the player-coach relationship, and it's a lot less about X's and O's. It still is important, don't get me wrong, but especially nowadays, forging that connection is now more important than ever. Jerry, what do you think of when you think about the connection that you guys had?
Well, I think I kind of come from a different perspective because I was a junior when Dick Vitale took the head coaching job at U of D. And what was interesting is in the Detroit papers back then, they were talking about Ben Blewett, who was an assistant coach with Jim Harding, as being a potential next coach, and then Tom Villamere, who was the coach at Grand Valley back then. But Villamere played at U of D. I think he played with Dave DeBuscher. And in the papers, it was Blewett or Villamere. Then all of a sudden, Dick Vitale's named the coach. And I think what happened, he probably wowed everybody during the interview. Because you know how he gets going, he starts talking, and all of a sudden, Dick Vitale's got the job. So I was the junior. In fact, Lavelle was the sophomore when Vitale came in. So it was things were pretty crazy when he got there because we ended up. He was ahead of his time from a marketing standpoint. I mean, he was doing things that nobody did.
Yeah.
I mean, we would practice at the Detroit area high schools, the Titan Express. We would do that, and he just got the coaches in the Catholic League and the PSL League all involved. So
Yeah.
that really helped, have program take off. And then, Terry and Kevin in like Toronto and John Long, Dave Grouser, all those guys came in my senior year, because Vitale had a year to recruit, and he brought 6 of the best players, not only in the state but probably in the country.
I mean, and I want to get back to you about Jim Harding. I do have a question for you about him in a minute, but let's get to Wilbert here, because obviously Wilbert, this was somebody that kind of picked you as well.
Yes, actually, being transparent, Dan, growing up, I was always a Michigan man. And when I had a chance to go to Michigan, my last 4 schools were Michigan, University of Detroit, Arizona, who had a Detroit coach, Freddie Snowden, and Dayton was my other school. Michigan that came to the east side to my home to sign me, and I changed my mind. And actually, when I committed to go to UD, I was down in Sharon, Pennsylvania, at an All-American Classic, and that's when I decided to that I wanted to go to UD. But of course, Dick, came to quite a few of my games, and Smokey, who I had a relationship with because we went to the same high school. His mom and my mom went to the same church, so we were, they were friends, and I already had a relationship with some of the players at UD as well as some of the players at Michigan as well. But I made that decision to go to UD based on just my gut feeling, and I don't regret it because I made some lifetime relationships, as you can see, with some of the guys we have on this call today, and some of the other guys that have passed on to glory, such as Terry Durod, Earl Cureton, Keith Jackson, Smokey Gaines is gone. So, but those some guys that I established some lifelong relationship with. And you made a statement that Dick was ahead of his time in terms of some of the his philosophies. One of the other things I always try to reiterate to players is that Dick was ahead of his time in terms of our conditioning program as well. Because our conditioning program, oh my goodness, I mean, we were more than prepared for the start of the season, going through the season. I mean, we had a trainer, Jack Moores, who put us through a rigorous preseason program, and we were definitely in shape for what we had to become. The up and down the court, the pressing that we did, the man and man. I mean, we were definitely ready for it. So.
And I would imagine that, like many other teams, and it doesn't matter what sport, sometimes teams are using those first few weeks of the season to round into shape. But obviously, that was not a concern for you guys. Terry, you mean, kind of just like Wilbert, Dickie V, he picked you, and it was a very important decision for you. I'm sure you had a few other places that you could have going to as well. So what was it about that relationship that attracted you to go with him?
I think, like Wilbur just said, and Kevin, he recruited me hard, and, he really established, at that time, he established his philosophy. He exposed me to what his dreams were and what his ideas were. But he would always he said, would you like to play, play here locally? Your parents can see you all the time. And it was I say it was a hard sell, but at the same time, it really wasn't because I only grew up 10 minutes away from the campus. And I remember that campus as a kid growing up. And I always thought it was probably one of the most beautiful campuses I've ever seen. Let alone, I didn't even know it was a Catholic school at that time. But one particular day, I was in the office, and I was being recruited, and he pulls out a photo, and it had Dave DeBuscher, and I can't remember the other player, but he played in the NBA also. It was no, I don't think it was Spencer, Jerry. I think it was I can't remember who it was.
Okay.
But it was a Dave DeBuscher, and Dave DeBuscher had the ball. But he said, Terry, look at the fans. And when I saw this, I never would think, and being at Calihan Hall, I saw this. There were fans literally sitting on the floor at this basketball game. And I was like, damn, that's pretty, pretty impressive. He said, and the first thing he said, the next thing he said was, wouldn't you like to be able to come into the arena and have the fans standing room only to watch you play? And I said, well, yeah, so that was a good selling point. Then I think, also like Wilbur, I was being heavily recruited from Michigan, Michigan State, Central Michigan. But the one school coach was always worried about it. And this is I'll always leave this story for Coach Vitale to tell. The one person he was probably more concerned about than anybody else on the planet was Al McGuire.
Yep.
Yeah, because Al McGuire came to my house and was in my living room and met my mom and dad. So again, you're talking about one of the greatest coaches ever being in my living room. Oh my God, this is Coach Al McGuire from the University of Marquette. And
hey Terry,
I chose to stay at home. Say what?
I got a question for you because Vitale told the story that McGuire was after you.
Yeah.
And when he didn't get you, he said, well, Terry, I wish you the best at the University of Detroit.
That's right.
But now I got to go get somebody better. And I signed Butch Lee.
Butch Lee, yeah.
That's what Vitale told us.
Yeah. So it was pretty fun. Yeah, but you know what? I'm glad you bring that up because one of the things that I think that really, really just not describes Coach Vitale, but, our program, we never had that luxury of, big campuses, big weight room, all the bells and whistles. So what you saw was what you get, and I truly believe when we say he was ahead of his time, he was capable of getting John Long, Kevin Cassetta, Toronto Anderson, Dave Grouser, Frank Russell, Larry Russell and myself. So he was able to lure us there, not lure, but to recruit us there. 6 local kids, and nobody. I think he took the college basketball by storm. He got 6 local guys to come in and play for him.
Well, hey, I think in addition to that, he built his base of fans and from each of our geographies, and
right.
He built it in the city and all the suburbs. So he had that baked in kind of to to proving that picture, right? When the stands were full and people were sitting on the floor.
And also, I think he really, really made a great connection with the Catholic schools. Because I really believe he wanted to he didn't close the door to nobody. He went after the talented guys. Even if he didn't get them, he still showed interest in them. And a prime example of that is I never forget him saying he was trying to get Tom Lagarde. And at that time, Tom Lagarde was the guy you know, in Michigan, I don't care what anybody said, in Michigan basketball. I would say to this day, he was a big time player. And coach, I think at the same time, as hard as he was trying to get him, he realized, that the chances are very slim, but he made it a point to let everybody know, hey, I'm gonna go after this kid, So that's how he was. And I mean he worked very hard. He was very, organized with what his plans were. Mm-hmm. And he pulled it off.
So Wilbert, I want to imagine that in a game where there is so much pressure on the player, you have this head coach whose personality is just larger than life. So I'm kind of curious as to how that personality affected you guys on the floor, because you guys were such a cohesive unit, and yet Dickie V was sort of the one out in front.
Well, Dan, one of the things I always tell people to this day that I mean, because of the type of players that we had, I mean, you realize when I was there, most of our players were, all state, all America, whatever. So our practices were so competitive. I mean, it prepared us for the game. I mean, the game was a break for us because, I mean, we went after each other in practice. I mean, so, I mean, the game was more or less a relaxation for us to get away from the practice. I mean, our practice were competitive
until halftime,
and we look forward to it. So, I mean, you realize that. I always tell people that many people never heard of Toronto Anderson, but I played against Toronto Anderson when he was at Kettering High School before he got to U of D. And Toronto could have gone to some other colleges and averaged 20 points or more. But it just so happened he was at U of D, and the person when Durod came, the person in front of Toronto was Terry Durod,
right? Who
could shoot the blood out the ball.
Yeah.
So I mean, you look at, everybody. I tell people about Wilbur Ross. Wilbur Ross was a hell of a high school player, one of the toughest in the country, but he got hurt, and John Lone ended up taking his spot.
Yeah.
So I mean, our practices with hell, and I think you remember Dan when I talked about our team in the past. I told you about Kevin Cassetta. Well, you have him on the phone. You have him on the Zoom today. I can remember my freshman year. I mean, Kevin was, before he got hurt, was a beast. I mean, he was that year. I mean, he was kicking tail.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he had that ACL injury. But I mean, that just shows you how deep we were. So it was like we had a next man up mentality.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember anything specifically that happened from a practice that stands out in their mind?
I've got one.
Please, Jerry.
And I got one. And this was this is my junior year, and Vitale was talking about, we got a guy, if we get this guy, we're going to win the national championship. So Smokey Gaines is living in Virginia, and the kid's name is Moses Malone.
Yeah.
And he goes, here's the deal. Maryland's interested in him, North Carolina, and U of D. I think we got investigated because he was interested in U of D. But Smokey was out there. He lived in Virginia. So Vitale's telling us we're going to win the national title if he comes. And one day he shows up, says, we told Moses, you can go to North Carolina or Maryland. You can talk to the trees, the pretty campuses. But if you come to U of D, you can talk to people who care about you. And if you come here, you can lead us to the promised land. And then Vitale, a week or two later, said, well, he went to the ABA. Nobody got him.
Who would have thought?
I remember him being very heavily recruited.
Detroit on his big three.
Yeah. Can you believe that?
Anybody else?
Kevin, you want to go?
In practice, I mean, there's so many, but I'm not sure if I can recite many of them.
This is a podcast. You can do that.
Oh, you can. Okay. Well, maybe I'll gloss over a little bit, but it was always the times that I remember too is when he put the folding chairs out on the court. So there'd be 12 folding chairs and we'd all have to sit in a chair. We each had a towel on the chair because it was like middle of practice. So he'd sit us down. He would be in front of us, Coach Vitale, and he was talking. I mean, and this would go on for 20 minutes. So he went from, one stratosphere to the next on topics, but he would be in front of us and because he couldn't see that well, he'd get so close and he's spitting on everybody. And then we have a towel trying to shield it from him spitting on us because he's getting so excited. And then the next thing you know, he's at half court and he's screaming, he's running a play. And then he's at the far end of the court and he's yelling from there. And it's like he's running the plays and he's coming back, circling back to the initial conversation that he started. So it's like, and then it goes in like half the time. It's like, what are we supposed to remember from all that? But it always came back to my initial comment was, the game of life, and then, the next game or the bigger picture beyond it all. So everything was always unrehearsed, but it seemed like it was, documented prior to, and that he had rehearsed it. Everything just came from, just from the hip.
Yeah. Wilbur, you got anyone? Because I got a good one.
Well, I mean, I have many stories, but I'm gonna go to this one here. This is I don't know if you guys remember, we had a 21 game winning streak, and we went down to Duquesne,
yeah,
on Norm Nixon night.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a very competitive game. We ended up losing to them in triple overtime.
Yeah.
So of course Dick tore the locker room up, and they ended up sending UAD a bill.
Remember the time at the Christmas tournament, we were playing Harvard. We were losing to Harvard.
Oh, don't bring that one up.
He had Cokes and drinks. I mean, he was throwing Cokes off the wall, and his Malon was chugging it and throwing it. And I mean, it was just like a mayhem. Bomb went off in that locker room.
Yeah.
So would we end up winning by 15 or something?
Yeah.
Well, that game there, with halftime, he said, you guys might as well tell your parents, your girlfriends, everybody go home after the game. Because if we lose this game, you practicing after the game.
Well, let me tell you, Wilbert, you know what? That was Kent State when we were losing, because that's when Tony Jameson came back home. That's when Tony Jameson came back home. We're in our Christmas tournament, and as much as he stressed defense, we broke down defensively on every phase, and it was disaster. We were down like 17 points at half, and we came back. And that's what he told us. He said, "We lose this game, tell your family, you ain't going home. We gonna practice after this." And we came back and won in overtime. That's when that was that. But one of my favorite practices.
I got one other one, a quick one. We came back from Marquette.
Oh my God!
We got whooped. We land. The bus pulls into Calihan, and Dick gets up and says, "Jack, get him dressed." And Jack Morris says, "Do you want him taped?" And he goes, "Nope." So that meant we're not going to play. We're just going to run. And we ran sprints up and down for every point we lost by.
Yep.
What did we lose by? 30?
30, yeah, it was bad. And
then after we ran about 10, he goes, "You guys ready to start?"
Yeah.
We ran for like an hour and a half.
Hey,
Sunday morning when we got back.
Hey, Kevin, you left out one of the best parts of that whole experience.
I'm sure.
He got ejected that night.
Oh, hard to believe.
One of my favorite practices was we came in and I think our attitude was there. Our mental we were there mentally, but at the same time we wasn't. And we start our practice, and a lot of mistakes were being made. And I guess I don't know if we weren't focused enough or whatever. So he stops practice. He says, "Hey guys, you gonna start when you gonna start effing practicing? Let's go." And so, he jumped us pretty good. We got back, we got focus and everything. And practice was popping real smooth and everything. But then all of a sudden, we hit that low again. We hit that low point again. And we was making mistakes and everything. So he stopped practicing. He says, get out. Everybody, get out. Go home. So he was like, oh, man. He said, get out. He just told us, just leave, go. And as we're leaving, he said, oh, by the way, I'll see you guys 6 a.m. in the morning.
By the way.
Oh, my God. I mean, it was like a chill just went through us, you know. Yeah, that's true. That
you
is
guys,
true.
You know, you mentioned Jack Morris a couple times, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but my freshman year, that was the last year that freshmen could not play varsity.
Yeah.
So Terry Thomas and I came in as freshmen, and Jack Morris was probably in his early 30s, and he was on the freshman team. Kevin probably knows this.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I vaguely remember that. Okay.
Yeah, he was on the freshman team, and then he was, I'm going to, go to school to be a trainer. And you guys know what happened after that.
Yeah, he was Jack then he was Mr. Moores.
Mr. Moore. Yeah. But you know what? For the record, the man knew his stuff.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean,
another one ahead of his time.
Ahead of his time, and he had us on that track. And as much as we hated it, man, did it pay off dividends? Because man, we hit that floor. I mean, we were just ready. We were just ready to play. Mentally and conditioning, we were just ready.
Well, you see now, no one, I mean, rarely presses. So we, off the score,
for 40 minutes,
man to man, off the miss, we'd fall back into a zone or a zone press.
Yeah,
it was either man press or zone press. It was
zone press, and the beautiful thing about it was we did that for 40 minutes.
Yeah,
for 40 minutes. So it was. I mean, we were ready. We were ready.
He loosened up sometimes. We went to 3/4 court press.
Oh yeah.
Took it easy on him.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things, Dan, is that in our preseason conditioning program, we were timed.
That's right.
In a mile every week.
Yep.
So the guards had to run it in a certain time. The big fellas had to run it in a certain time. I mean, we had probably 5 to 6 guys run the mile in 5 minutes under. Mm-hmm. And I look at some of the times now these guys are running. I mean, some of these guards now are running the mile in 7, 8 minutes. Yeah, we had big fellas running the mile in 5 to 6 minutes.
Yep.
Right. So, and we had to do the mile. You had to try to do the mile at least under 5 minutes. At least.
Or taking the cab from Palmer Park.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I got Wilbur mentioned this. I gotta ask Wilbur, do you remember how many seconds we had to do, the guards had to do a suicide?
No, I don't. No.
Okay. And this is going back, and this is where he got this from. Dick is famous for this. Our freshman year, Kevin, if you remember this, he had read where Johnny Davis, who from Detroit, Murray Wright, was at Dayton.
Yep.
And it was put in this article that Johnny Davis could do a suicide in 26 seconds. and that day at practice, he said, if Johnny Davis can do a suicide in 26 seconds, our guys going to have to be able to do a suicide in 26 seconds. And man, he wasn't selling for 26.5. He wanted 26 seconds, period.
And he gave a lot of slack to the big guys.
He gave a lot of slack to us.
28 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, it was, whew, he was on fire.
When we were on the line getting ready to start, and then he'd say, if you don't make it, you're running another one.
Yeah.
I'd have everyone look down the line at me.
Yeah.
You better make it. You better make it. I mean, there was somewhere I dove across the line to make the time.
I remember one time we were doing a suicide, and I mean, I was at least was second, and I had one step to cross the line, and he says, "Oh no, you guys got to do it again." Tyler let up, and I was like, "Holy cow!" I was like, "Wait a minute!" I said, like, I was just one step away from crossing over that baseline, and I let up. I was like, "Oh man!" I like so, and then Kevin looks at me and says, "Don't do that again."
Because that was the one time I did make
That was
it.
the one time I was like, "Holy cow! Wait a minute!"
And
Holy cow.
when did T ever let up on anything?
And I
Never.
was like,
Never.
"Whoa, wait!" I said, "Whoa." So, but we did it. I wasn't gonna argue with him.
And that's
Now-
the one thing too. Everyone was treated the same.
Everybody was
no-
treated the same.
No stars, no,
Oh man,
bencher, no 10th or 11th guy. I mean,
No.
everyone was on the same
Everybody
level.
was. We were a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were a team.
I'm glad you said that. And now I'll ask you, Jerry, your first years at Detroit, and this was already kind of half mentioned, were with Jim Harding. And so I'm
Yeah.
curious because you went from a different coach to Dickie V. And I did read that Jim Harding's nickname was the Maniac. So did he have that nickname when you were there, or was he like a maniac in training?
What we used to say is whenever he stepped on wood, he would lose his mind. But really, to be honest with you, I'll tell you something about Jim Harding, and Lavelle can attest to this, but he's not on the call. The guy was a genius defensively. I mean, if you did not guard somebody and your feet weren't right, he'd go crazy and you'd start running. So he was unbelievable from a defensive standpoint. But he was definitely pretty intense. And it was fun. Like I mentioned earlier, when Harding left U of D, Vitale just came out of nowhere because I think he shocked everybody and probably wowed all the people that interviewed him. But I just thought of something. I know Terry, Kevin, and Will remember Walter Smith.
Yes.
And Lavelle was present because this was my junior year when Walter came in with Dennis Boyd and Wilbur
Right.
Wilbur Ross
And Ron Bostic.
Yeah.
and Ronnie B. That's right. But anyway, after practice, Vitale had us all go up into one of the rooms at Calihan Hall, and he bought Walter a birthday cake, and we all sang happy birthday to him. And Vitale said he had never had a birthday cake, and Walter was crying. Coach was crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've told a lot of people too the same thing. Came from the suburbs, guys came from Brooklyn, the Bronx, all around.
Yeah, right,
in the city, Detroit, and it's all different types of upbringings too that get melted together because
yeah.
we all thought about team first. I mean, I don't know anyone that thought about me.
It was just always the team.
Do what you can, and if you're a role player, then you play your role. And you're lucky you're playing. Like Wilbur said before, everyone's all state, all American, whatever. Someone's so easily can replace you. So you just did what you had to do, what you could do with the time given in his situation too. So I think that was a big piece of the success we had as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jerry, so you go from Jim Harding to Dickie V. How soon were you like, where the hell did we find this guy?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it was funny because he'd start talking during practice, and it wouldn't be like a 10-minute talk. It'd be 45 minutes, and then he'd go, "Geez, we got to practice," and we're all sitting there figuring, well, if he keeps talking, then we don't have to run.
Yeah, that'll be the day.
Yeah, we didn't figure so well there.
Yeah.
And there was no time limit to practice.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Back then, anyway.
Yeah.
So how did this all progress? I mean, of course, he gets there. You guys have a really solid first season, 17-9. The next year, 19-8. You're still building. You get into 76, 77, and that's when really everything starts to click. So What was it about those first 2 years that helped lay that groundwork? Kevin, why don't we start with you?
Well, I came in the second year of that, and I think just knowing, how coach he was, and we really, I didn't hear many, stories about him. I just knew about him when he recruited you. So that's all you really know is when, he shows up in your, like T said, in your parents' living room, and he runs through plays, and he's 2 hours and he's sweating and all this. But I mean, it was unbelievable. But I think you just knew that there was going to be something, even though we didn't realize it at the time. We knew that this was the place for us to be, and that he was building the plan from the ground up. Because, like you said, Michigan State, they had the reputations, they had the big programs, all the bells and whistles. Where he had to do it from work ethic and sweat and knowledge. But I think kind of what built all that, and this is my opinion, but he's like a student of the game. Eats, sleeps, drinks it. So he'd always quote, McGuire or Bobby Knight or
Dean Smith.
Smith. So he gathered bits and pieces, John Wooden, bits and pieces from all those coaches, and he took like the best of the best and incorporated it into what he did and what we did. And I think that it's not rocket science, but it's just a matter of it's the hard work, which a lot of I think coaches or teams or schools, they don't want to do.
Right.
And we like you said, we didn't have all the press and accolades and the history. Well, we had history, but we didn't have the like I said, the bells and the whistles. But we knew we had to work hard within the parameters we were given, and I think that it just evolved that way, and just the way we treated each other and played together is unlike a lot of teams I think that I've seen in the past or in the future or currently too.
Terry, Dickie V had a lot of strengths as a coach. Give me something, and you guys can all jump in on this after, but I'm curious, Terry, what you would say. Give me something you think that he took pride in as a coach.
Wow, I think what he mostly took pride in is his preparation. And I mean, from the video room to the practice floor to the scouting to the game, he took pride in that because he wanted us to be prepared, all of us, 1 through 15, because as much as he believed we belong, he had us believing we belong with the elite teams. And I always brag about this. UD was the school that was always on the back of the sports page. And when we started playing together as long as we did and started winning, UD became the school that was on front of the sports page. And we were right there with the Michigans and the Michigan States. And I think with his attitude and his toughness and his mentality, and like Kevin said, his knowledge of the game, all that rubbed off on us. And I think, his vision became a reality. I think when we go into Marquette and we beat Marquette, we just didn't settle. I think, guys, if you remember, we go to Arizona, we get our tails kicked by 30-something points. Mm-hmm. Where Arizona comes back and, Arizona's got to come to UD. So we know our mentality was, this is payback time. You're not going to come into our house and beat us by 30-something points. Freddie Snowden from Detroit. Bob Elliott was from Detroit. So he had, some local talent that was from Michigan. Well, Coach Vitale wasn't going to have it. They were going to be in our house. They were going to be in Calihan Hall in front of our crowd. And we put on a show. And I think that season, everything just came together for us, and we started believing that we belong with those upper teams, that we can compete with those teams. And I think that's the thing that I always take from him, is that he prepared us for each and every game and how he went about preparing us for those games.
Very well said. I mean, that's right on. I mean, I think that is the main gist of what Coach did, and I think too the other thing is that he cared about his players.
Yes.
He'll dog cuss you 1 second, but then the next second he's got his arm around you.
Yeah.
So, and we knew that. I mean, to build on T's point, when Vitale was telling us all along that we could play with those teams, and then when we did beat them, then it even sunk in more. He said, we can play with anyone now. I mean,
anybody.
And that just amped up, the competitiveness and the confidence level. So he was a confidence builder, not a destroyer.
And really, just to interject on what T said also, Dan, I don't know if you knew this, that when Arizona came to UD, we beat them in 76, 77 season. They were number 1 in the country.
Yeah.
We beat them. Also, just to add something else, we went down to Marquette and beat them that year. We went to St. Bonaventure and beat them that year.
Yeah.
Marquette was the NCAA champion that year.
Yep.
And St. Bonaventure was the NIT champion that year.
Yeah,
so we were the only team to beat the NCAA champion and also the NIT champion. So, one of the things that I like to say about Dick is that Dick's motto is that nobody was going to outwork him and nobody was going to outwork us. Because we worked our tail off, and like T said and Kevin said, I mean, we were prepared when we played. I mean, Dick was even ahead of himself, even in terms of watching film, studying game film, and scouting teams and that stuff. Because we went over the scouting reports diligently. So we were prepared when teams came to play us.
Except at the DePaul game. Remember that? Dave Corzine?
Dave Corzine. I remember him.
Corzine's 6'11" center. He goes to his left, scores on T. Next time down, fakes right, goes to his left, scores on T. And I go, T, what are you doing? He goes, I'm shading his right. He's right-handed. I go, no, he's left-handed. You might want to switch that up a little bit.
I gotta tell this story. We mentioned Ronnie Bostic. When I graduated, I would come watch Terry and Kevin. Wilbur is much younger than those guys, but I'd watch Terry and Kevin play. And I was in grad school, so I'm watching games, and I'm talking to Bostic before a game. And I go, Ronnie, I can't figure out what you guys are running offensively. He goes, we got Durant and John Long shooting. If they miss, Terry gets a rebound. That's all we need to do. We're kicking everybody's butt. We're going to outscore anybody we play. I just started laughing.
What did we average that year? 92 points a game?
Oh, my God.
You guys scored a ton of points. I know that.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I just want to point out. Our first game, our junior year against Eastern Michigan, it was Ray Scott and Dick were going back and forth in the paper. On page, battling. And so that's a game where I think Dick was saying ahead of time, wouldn't you want to play in front of this? What Calihan held or holds 8,800. There must have been 10,000 people there sitting in the aisles. If there was a fire, good night.
Oh my, yeah.
So the tip goes up. T wins a tip. They pick it up in a scramble. One of their point guards comes down. He takes a jump shot. T goes up and catches it, cups it, and brings it down. I'm standing next to the referee. I look at him, and the referee's like, he's like frozen. And then he blows the whistle like goaltending. I go, you got to be kidding. I think you've never seen a guy be able to do that before. I mean, he went up and just cupped it and brought it down. It's like,
oh boy.
I had a front row seat to a lot of that action too. That was like,
I'm gonna add one thing to that.
Oh shoot! There he is!
I'm gonna add one thing to that.
Guys, real quick, and Laval, I want to get you on here. Guys, Laval Perry is here, fresh off running suicides for being late to the party. Laval, great to see you.
Let me just say this. Dick Vitale, Coach Vitale was like an unbelievable motivator. And I know we played Michigan. Michigan was ranked number 4 in the country, came into our gym. No one gave us a chance. And we just lit into them and beat them right on our home floor. And after that, they took us off the schedule. But he had us motivated. He had us motivated for that game, and we played our behinds off, and we ended up winning the game. A very, very great win in Detroit history.
Yeah.
Laval, it's so great
like
to
35.
see you. And Laval, I do want to get you a chance to catch up with us. So if you can, when you think of Dick Vitale, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
He's gonna be talking nonstop. I can tell you that. I mean, I say talking. He knows all the players, all the games, all the scores, who's going where, who did what, and he's like a walking dictionary, encyclopedia.
Yeah.
And I mean, from high school to you name it, and he was just there. So I mean, he was very knowledgeable on all the players, the scores of teams, and preparation was good when we played. So he was, like I said, just an unbelievable guy that had knowledge about everything. I mean, from the pros to college to high school. Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. Gary, was there a moment, and I want to open this up to all of you guys, so go ahead and think about this one as well, but with the way he was able to connect with people, the way that he was there a moment that you realized that he cared as much about you as a person as he did about you as a player?
There's different ways I can answer that. But I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to share this, and this is when I think I realized that not only did he care about us as players, but the responsibility he put on us to be proud of our program.
Yep.
And I'm going to talk about one of our player that was that not only was the coaching staff recruiting, he put his players to work. And I want to talk about Dave Niles. And Dave Niles was out of Garden City West. Am I doing? And is that correct?
Yeah,
So
actually, Dave and I were the two Dream Team guards our senior year.
Yeah. So one day we come to practice and everything, and he calls Durod, he calls Wilbur, myself, and John. Kevin, were you there? Did you go with us?
Where was that too?
We had to go see Dave Niles play.
Oh, I don't think so. I'd seen him play before.
Okay.
But I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. So
okay. So anyway, we come to practice and he calls the four of us. So he says, "Hey guys, and this is how he said it. He said, guys, I want you to go watch Dave Niles out of Garden City West play tonight. And I want you to tell me about him. When you see him play, I want to report on him." So we said, okay, because we wasn't gonna say, well, I got something else to do, because that wasn't gonna fly. So we went to go watch Dave Niles play. And I mean, Dave lit it up. I mean, he lit it up. So we sit next to each other and everything. So we say, hey man, he can play with us. Next day we come back, and his question was, it wasn't the fact that can he play or can he help? He said, can Dave help us win? And we was like, well, yeah, and that was all he needed to know. To make a long story short, Dave signed to come to the University of Detroit. But I think to answer your question, he wanted us to really, just not be ball players. He wanted us to care, for the program. And I think he taught us, to care for each other. And I don't think he expected this brotherhood to grow as much as it did.
Yeah. And
it has through the years. I mean, I think when you go from being 17, 18 years old and you become an adult and everything, I was, blessed and fortunate, to go play in the NBA. But, I think my home base and my foundation will always be the University of Detroit, because that's the place where I feel I learned a lot about not just basketball, but myself. But I had my teammates around me to help me out and lift me up, because I always say this: None of that would have been the NBA, and none of that would have happened if it wasn't for my teammates at the University of Detroit, or me being at home. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on man. I truly mean that.
Wilbert, got anything?
Well, one of the things that let me know that Dick really cared was I don't know if you guys remember my freshman year I had back spasms and they thought I had ruptured disc in my back. Let me give you a little story on this. Then we were playing down in Cleveland, I believe, and there was a loose ball, and I went to get the loose ball and got stuck. And the guy picked it up and made the layup. So, I mean, after the game, my teammates had to put me in the shower and do everything because I couldn't bend over at all. But I was going back and forth to the doctors, the specialists, because they couldn't figure out what was going on with my back. So, I mean, that took a lot of patience from the coach and also, my teammates in terms of helping me out. So,
Kevin.
I think it's just, kind of what T had said too is, he wanted us to represent the university, the professors, the priests, the fans, everybody who went to school there, everyone that was affiliated, administrative team, that administration. He just wanted us to be, young men and be proud of where we were and appreciative of the position we were in. Not that, and because he brought everyone. If you had an ego, I don't remember anyone having, but if you did have one, it would have been compressed because he wanted, like T said earlier, everyone was treated the same, and he didn't want those onesies and twosies to jump off the page to say, I'm treating them different or they're special. I mean, I never experienced that at all, and there were guys that could have been treated special, but he just didn't do it, and he always brought us back to the grassroots, that grounded us by saying, you represent the university and you need to go out on the court when you're on campus, when you're off campus, and represent yourself in a professional manner.
Jerry, Laval?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that he used to always say, don't go to this game, play this game, and at the end of your career, you end up as a has-been. Go to college, go to school, go to classes, and make it in the biggest game of all, the game of life. And he reiterated that comment so many times.
Yeah.
I mean, I could recite it sideways, backwards, or whatever, because he wanted us to get that information. And I think it sunk in to a lot of people. But it definitely sunk into me too as well. Because he said, don't be just a jock, but be a scholar athlete. Get a degree, make something of yourself, get a career. So when you finish here, you're going to have a decent life.
Yeah.
Jerry, you got anything to wrap us up on this particular?
Yeah, Lavelle kind of read my mind because I'd say the same thing. He always focused on, okay, what's going to happen after you're done playing? So, like, the game of life is what it's all about. You work hard here, you work hard in your life, you'll be successful. And that's what I remember. He constantly talked about not only winning games, but winning in the game of life.
Building blocks, building blocks for the longer game.
Yeah.
Hey,
By
Terry,
the way, you guys finished with 91 points per game in that Sweet 16 season, just outside the top 10 as a team. And those teams had to have everyone pulling in the same direction. And a few names have been mentioned, but you also have to have great talent. But who's someone, whether it was a player or a coach that maybe wasn't Dickie V, who deserves to be mentioned here in this conversation today for what they did for your squad?
Oh my gosh. I mean, go ahead, guy. I'm gonna let my teammates go first.
Let me say one of
Wilbur,
one of our unsung heroes, and even he's one of unsung heroes even to this day, is Richard McDermott. He was the only walk-on to make it up under Dick. But I mean, to this day, Rich is the one that keeps us together. I mean, we have a team chat that all of us is on, including Dick. And Rich sends out happy birthday reminders to everybody. So Rich is I mean, he worked just as hard as we did. I mean, and Dick treated him like he treated us. But you know, Rich was the only one that I know of that really made it as a walk-on up under Dick.
And you won't have, if you talk to Richie, you won't have to look at any archives. He's like a walking encyclopedia. I mean, he remembers dates and times in that year of when things happened. I mean, it's unbelievable. But he bleeds Detroit.
Yeah.
I
remember he worked hard, as hard as everyone else, and you know, maybe he gets a minute or 2 minutes at the end of the game, but I mean, he said he wouldn't have traded for the world.
No.
And you can, I mean, Rich remembers detail by detail.
Oh,
right.
I can remember he was talking about the inter squad game when Terry and Kevin and John Long and Toronto Anderson and all those guys were freshmen. I mean, he went detail by detail in terms of what happened that particular game. So, I mean, but not only that game, he just remembered details, period.
Yeah, it does. It's amazing, yeah.
Hey, Terry.
Yes.
I just thought of one thing before I take off. You remember when the Vitale would turn all the lights off in the gym and everybody'd run through the hoop?
Yes.
And
yes.
Your brother Billy talked to me one night. He says, you know, I'm concerned about Terry because he goes in, he's the last guy, he jumps up. I'm afraid he's going to hurt himself because he jumps too damn high. And he's going to sprain an ankle before the doggone game starts.
I was so excited. My emotions were just, I just wanted to be out there and I just wanted us to win. I just wanted to be with my teammates. And I wanted everybody to know I was just excited to be where I was, in the place that I was. And I just wanted us to win.
Well, guys, I look at this.
It was fun talking.
Really was.
You were a huge factor. You were a huge factor in that success during those 4 years too, T.
Well, I what I always say, Kevin, I had a little help from my friends. So
team sport.
You know that. But you know what though? Go ahead.
Just one other quick one. And Jerry's point of jumping so high. We're in practice one time. T's running the lane. He gets the pass. He dunks. He comes running back. He's rubbing his head. I go, what happened? He goes, I hit my head on a rim. Hit your head on the rim? I said, I was way out of my lane.
Hey, Kevin, you remember when you guys played Minnesota? Michael Thompson had like 30, 35. At the end of the game, he took a hook shot and Terry threw it into the bleachers. And Michael Thompson shook his hand and was laughing when he did it.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
That was
hard. That was those growing pains too. That's when we were being tested real hard. Yeah.
Guys, hey Dan, I have a question for you.
Please.
And this is all. Yes, I have a question with Dan. I hear UD is being referred to as a mid-major now. And I don't know when that started, but we were never referred to as a mid-major back then. We were independent, but we were never referred to as a mid-major. We were, I mean, back then we were one of the big boys. So
isn't that funny how that has seemingly progressed and changed and altered over the course of time? And no, I mean, I think I like independent more than I like mid-major. I think if it was my choice, I think I'd rather be considered independent. But you know what we have seen is, you know, essentially, I feel like when I hear mid-major, I feel like that's more associated with some of the challenges that those schools have trying to compete with some of the other schools, some of the big schools, some of the big fish. So I think it's more a reflection of what they have available to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, back then, we played the Arizonas, we played the North Carolinas, we played the Syracuse. Back then, Georgetown was big. We played them. We played the Marquettes. We played the DePauls. We played the Michigan States. I mean, we would beat most of them also. So I mean,
well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that because, you know, I'm talking to this group that went to the NCAA tournament, that went to the Sweet 16, that was basically a top 10 team in the country. So, I mean, this is Detroit Titans royalty. I mean, is there a moment from that tournament that stands out to you guys? I'll start with Kevin. Is there any particular moment that really stands out to you? And I know that obviously that at that point, I believe you were a junior, right, Kev?
Yeah. I was watching it from the sidelines with the knee injury. So
Right.
it was, I mean, just being in that place at that time, Rupp Arena, you know, in those kind of situations, it was, I mean, it was something new to me. And it was just, I could take it all in without being concerned about being prepared for the game. So it was from a different mindset, a different, set of eyes, but it was watching from, the sideline, watching the guys that, I mean, it's hard to do that. I mean, if you've ever been injured and you had to sit out and watch, it's doubly tough, but you're supportive, but I think it was just the aura of the being in the tournament and who we were playing and where we were playing, that it's just bigger than what a normal game was. Or
Gary, how
tournament.
about you?
I think one of the greatest feelings I had was, when we matched up to play against Middle Tennessee, and I never forget getting off the plane and seeing the University of Tennessee, if we're all going, walking to the airport together and everything. And Bernard King comes over and talks to Ron Bostic and everything. So I really thought that was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that and everything. So to me, that emotion, that feeling was, hey, we're here, we've arrived, we're here. The hard work paid off.
Jerry, what about you?
Well, I didn't get to go to the NCAA. What was interesting, and Lavelle will remember this, is I think Vitale had some issues with somebody running the NIT, because we thought we were going to get to the NIT.
Mm.
And Vitale ended up buying us watches that we would have gotten if we went to the NIT. But yeah, he had, I'm trying to think of the guy, Carlissimo or somebody he had a feud with. So
Jerry,
you
never got your watch, Jerry?
What's that?
You never got your watch?
Yeah, I got a watch.
You did?
Yeah, I got one. Do you?
I got two.
Two? Well, you're older. Well, I was gone. You got to watch the following year when I graduated.
Oh, okay.
Got two. What the heck, man? You're younger than me.
Wilbert, what about you?
Well, I always say that was, I mean, it was such a feeling, a great feeling, because many people don't realize back in those days, only 32 teams got to go to the tournament.
Right.
I think now it's like 64 or 66, 67 teams get to go.
Yeah.
So it was only 32 teams got to go to the tournament. So I think it was harder then than it is now.
Wow. Yeah.
Because that particular season, I think we finished 25-3.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was a hell of a record. Now I'm gonna tell you something. One of the things, T would never tell you this, but when we lost to Michigan in a very close game, T was hurt that game, but he never would complain about that. I can remember T hurt his heel before that game. So, but I would like to see what the outcome would have been if he had been healthy, fully healthy.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Very true. Very true.
Lavelle, you got anything
all
for
you
us?
guys.
You too.
It was great seeing you
too,
talking to you.
I think
You
I
too,
think you
Jared.
guys summed it up. I think it was, some great years, a lot of excitement, and I think we were, very proud of what we had accomplished as a team, and I think the coaches did a great job of preparing us, and hey, I think we did a good job. Good job. It was a very exciting era, no question about it.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
They got to get back to that era.
Yeah.
That's what's got to happen.
And guy like Wilbur said, he says, they say University of Detroit, University, I just say University of Detroit. So it's a mid-major now. I like to say we were when we were independent, you know, that spoke volumes because we were that we proved to people we could play against the best, you know.
Yep.
Cool.
So Terry, when you
Yes,
got
sir.
picked by the Pistons, you get picked 23rd
Mhm.
overall NBA
Yeah.
draft, which was the first pick of the second round, I believe, at that time. But the
Yeah, first
Pistons
pick,
did
so
not
yeah.
have a first round pick. And we now live in a world of pre-draft promises. Did Dickie V ever promise you that if you were there at 23, the Pistons would take you?
No promises. No promises. So he rolled the dice on John and me. He rolled the dice. But I think one of the best things that happened was nothing was handed to us. But we learned that from the University of Detroit. So when John and I got to the NBA, it was almost like an old hat. We're just gonna go out here and just show you we're gonna kick ass and we're gonna show people we're gonna play. And we just didn't do that at practice. When we got the opportunity to hit the floor against the NBA elites, we had to show them we could play. But I think the pressure that I'm sure the criticism that Coach Vitale got, we weren't heard of. We weren't from the upper, these upper D1 schools and everything. But I think John and I, paid our dues. I think the work we did at the University of Detroit disciplined us mentally because we were mentally tested and everything. I think the physicality was nothing because of our conditioning and everything. So when it came down to playing 82 games, it was open arms for us. It was no problem.
Who
John
can
is, I talked to John about that too, and he said the conditioning that you brought to the NBA
Yeah.
was just light years up beyond everyone
Yeah.
else. No one
I
was.
mean, I'm not trying to brag, but guys that didn't come in shape, knew. We would just look at them like, hey man, what's wrong with you? We have to run, But guys were just, at that, back then, in those late 70s, early 80s, guys were just trying to play themselves in shape. Well, John and I would come in shape, ready to play.
I want to take a half step back personally. I only have you guys for a few more minutes. So I did want to cover a couple things. Who can tell me about when Dickie V was dancing at the middle of center court?
Down in Marquette.
Yes.
Everyone.
Yes, I remember. Well, that was a game when Dennis Boyd hit we played down in Marquette. Dennis Boyd hit the jumper at the buzzer to beat Marquette. Yep. And that was a regional televised game, matter of fact.
Yes.
And
yes.
Dick was just so happy because one of the things, not only did we beat Marquette, but we beat Al McGuire.
Wow. Yeah,
Al
that was his protege.
one of the guys that Dick kind of talked about idolizing the sense.
Yeah.
We were in the middle of the court, and all of a sudden, Dick breaks out with this Dickie B shuffle, as we call it.
Well, and guys, let me tell you, one of the things he said, and I think he knew we were ready. He said, "We win this game, yep. I'm going to dance in the middle of the court." Right. He did that. He made that. He made that announcement. He made that prediction. He made that prediction himself. He said, "We win. I'm dancing in the middle. I'm gonna dance in the middle of the court."
A little more incentive for us to even win.
Even do it, sorry, because we want to see him do it. And you know what? He even did it down there in Dayton. And Dayton was not only was they our rival, but we went our freshman year. We went down there and we got our tails handed to us. But we went down there again and we beat him on their floor. He danced there too as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to let the whole show go by without figuring out exactly when, where, and why he was dancing on mid-court. All right, so then Dickie V goes to the Pistons. So, I mean, a lot gets made about when coaches leave. This one was a little more unique. So if one of you guys can just take me into that moment when you guys found out and take me into that room as to how it all kind of came across.
Any of us?
I can top line it, but I'm sure T and Wilbur can talk more specifics. But I mean, it's all together. I think it was in the morning. We're at Calihan, and everyone's there, and coach is talking about, his health and what he can do, what the doctors are saying, and he's always had bleeding ulcers, and he said, I'm gonna have to step away. I can't keep coaching because the doctors say I'm gonna, could die.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but then, you got everyone, like I said, guys from Brooklyn and Bronx and everywhere else in the city, and, crying and more probably for more reasons than just playing and being to play for him, but his health as well. So, I mean, I can't recall how long it went on for and kind of how it finished, but I think that's kind of the gist of it. And like I said, T and Wilbur can probably add more details to that.
Well, I know the whole team was in there, and he made that announcement that his health and everything was not good. He had those bleeding ulcers and everything, and from a player's perspective, his standpoint, we had already established that camaraderie with each other, and he knew that. So I think I always say to this that he taught us responsibility. So I think he felt that one, we were ready. We were we knew what we had to do. We grew up. We knew what it took to win and everything. And he also was Smokey Gaines was going to also come in as as the coach and everything. So he knew he was leaving the situation well in hand. However, I think, at the same time, we wish he could have stayed a little longer, but that's something that was, that wasn't our decision. That was something that was beyond our control. And this was something that his mind was made up and everything. So, but he knew that we were capable of carrying on through the situation.
Yeah.
And add to what Kevin and Big T said, it was a solemn moment because you got to realize that year before is when we won 21 straight.
Yeah.
And went to the NCAA tournament. So we were really coming to the year expecting to build on that. And I think he had some good recruits in terms of Kevin Smith came from Brother Rice, All-American from Brother Rice. And I think Arthur Bright came from Chicago, and I forget who else it was. It was somebody else, but we had some very.
It was a Michael Gutter.
Michael Gutter came from Wisconsin, whatever. So we had some very good pieces. Well, we had some great pieces to add to what we already had. So we were looking to build onto the season that we had before. So and it was ready before the start of the season when we found out that. So.
It's not easy too. And I do want to ask you about Dickie V as a broadcaster, but real quick, Wilbert, for you, because you were there a little bit longer. Of course, you were also there with Smokey. So what was it like and how did things change? Because the records were still really good.
Well, I think that the records were good. They were different personality-wise. I mean, we went from a person that talked quite a bit to a person that didn't talk as much. So, I mean, Dick,
putting it mildly.
I mean, Dick was the hour and a half to 2 hour person, and Smoke was the exact opposite. So, personality-wise, I think the demand was different. But I mean, we had some very good players there that kind of picked up the pieces. I mean, that year I think Big T was the captain, and who was the captain with you, T?
It was actually Kevin, John, Toronto, and myself.
Yeah, exactly. So they were the four leaders of the team that year. So and ironically, I look at some of the teams now. For instance, the team this past year, one of the things I used to kind of emphasize to Monty is that when I looked at that team, I didn't really notice a leader on the court or a leader per se. And one of the things I used to tell them, I say, back in the day, it was kind of different because we had leaders out there. And the other thing is that we kind of policed ourselves. I mean, we kept each other in check.
Amen.
So which made it easier on the coach as well.
Yeah.
Because I just know from different occasions and during games during the senior year, we'd come out of a timeout and then we'd go, what are we going to run? Because maybe we didn't get as much direction from Smokey as we did from Dick. So we'd talk amongst ourselves. So here's what we're going to run. We're going to run this play out of bounds or that play. And then, so it was more like Will said that, it was incumbent upon us to step up because we were there before and we knew the system and, we weren't going to step back. We were going to keep moving forward.
Wanted to keep moving forward. We wanted to continue to the winning. It became so contagious. We got so used to it. It just became second nature to us. When the Titans hit the floor, we don't just play, we're winning. And that's how it was.
For most of us, when Dick Vitale is on a call as a color analyst for a college basketball game, all of us feel better knowing that he's going to be the one on the sidecar watching any particular college basketball game. But you guys have a very different perspective because of your history with him. So I'm curious, what's it like for you guys watching Dickie V do games as a broadcaster?
Go ahead.
I think for me initially, right out of, when he started broadcasting that, it was like, we heard those things so many times for 4 years, aircraft carrier, diaper Dan. You're just like, can I turn the volume down a little bit? And then that, so I can watch the game instead of hearing it. But now it's like, the volume's back up and it's just his knowledge and his understanding. And I've told people, I said, I don't know if he even does research. He just knows it. He knows all the players. He knows what their background is. I know he does research, but it's like it flows so easily for him, kind of like a Ernie Harwell did for years. That kind of presentation that it's professional and it's art, and then it's actually science as well.
Go ahead, T.
I think I always enjoy it from the standpoint of, first of all, I always say he's not announcing, he's coaching, because he still has that same demeanor about himself. And, I always say, I think he's got a clause in his contract that he has to have a seatbelt on because he might jump out of the broadcast booth and just go out there and stop the game and just start coaching again, So, but what I'd love to see him do more than anything else is that when they show an instant replay, he always says, freeze it right there. And I don't know, I wish I could count the times we sit in that video room and he said, freeze it right there. Terry, are you rebounded? Well, yeah, coach, well, let's see if you rebounded or not, and when he's like that, I know he's in his element because not only is he just, he's teaching the game again. He's letting the audience, the TV audience, that maybe they don't understand something about basketball, but he's giving them, a little piece of himself, but he's also showing them what the game is all about. And I think that's great.
Lavelle,
I think T kind of really took a lot of my steam, what I was going to say. But one of the other things, like to interject, is that really, if you watch him, he's in his element. He's so comfortable. That's Dick. It's just like, I had guys say to me, "Is he really like that?" I said, "That's Dick there." Yeah. I can remember. Back in the day, it wasn't anything to see Dick anywhere in the city watching games. He was all over. That's his element in terms of interacting with the crowd, with the audience. That's him. He's comfortable doing it.
Right. For one thing, Dick would get on a roll and start speaking in practice. Well, he'll start talking. He gets on a roll. It's like being in Vegas and you're hot. You just can't stop.
You just run.
All right, get back out there, guys. Let's go. Everyone gets up stiff. We have to go back and start stretching and warming back up again so he could go back and play because he talked to us for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes,
Oh,
45.
You been conservative, Pete.
45, Lavelle.
And he's ready to go again tomorrow. The next day, he's ready to go again. But, he was really a special guy to play for. And I would say that he found his niche broadcasting because he loves to talk. And he's done a great job over the years. He's a Hall of Famer. So, hey, my hat's off to him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jerry, is it fair to say that watching him on TV is like jumping in a time machine?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Lavelle said. I think he loved coaching, but I think he really loved announcing, and he's a great ambassador for college basketball. I mean, everybody loves the guy, and I know he doesn't do too many games anymore, but I think I watched 1 or 2 games this year that he actually did. But
Well, I think
he made ESPN. Think about it. He was the first announcer.
I think there too, he picked from the best announcers, Packard and McGuire and all those guys. And same thing that he did in his coaching career. He picked from the highlights, and the positive points from those guys, and incorporated into his own style, which then it sets himself apart from everyone else.
From everybody else, correct.
Hey, Dan, I got to run. I walked in the door, and now my grandkids want to see me.
Okay. Hey, Jerry, wonderful
thank you.
seeing you, man.
Good seeing you, Jerry.
Thank you, guys.
Yes,
Much
sir.
love to you, man. Much love. Love
All
you.
right, man. Be good,
Love
everybody.
Love
Nice
you.
seeing
Take care.
everybody.
Peace.
Take it easy.
All right,
Thanks,
you
Dan.
too. Great seeing you. Great seeing you, Jerry.
See
Love
you
you.
guys. Bye-bye.
Yep.
You too.
Bye-bye now.
Well, since I have time for one more with you guys, and I know all of you guys are in all different corners of the world, I'm curious how you're following the Titans, but more so than that, and Wilbert and I have had conversations about this too, is why it matters right now more than ever to support the current group that are trying to carry on that legacy. So, Terry, I'll start with you and just how much you've been able to plug in. I know you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, so I know you're kind of across the country, but I'm sure that doesn't mean that you're totally out of the loop here.
No, I'm not. I keep up with him. Plus, I have I call my man, I call my teammates right there, but my main man, Richie McDermott, I'm always, if I just need to know something, what's going on, I will call him, call him too to, to find out what's really going on. But I think, what matters is that, and people may not understand it, but who you talking to right now, we are the guys, and I'm going to brag a little bit on us. We're the guys that put UAD on the map. Okay, we're the guys that said, okay, move over Michigan State. Here come the Titans, and not only we just going to talk about it. We're going to show you why we belong. And I think for these young men that are there now, it would be great for them to experience what it feels like to win. Because I think one of the things I'll point out is they don't know what it's like to have a big crowd in Calihan Hall. They've never seen that. I wish and I want them to start winning games so they'll know what it's like to have, 4,000 or 5,000 people in there. Just the crowd itself, just to be on top of them and to see it and the fans from the community of Detroit coming to watch them play. So I want them to have the success that we had and everything. It's going to take work. It's not going to be handed to you, but it is there. They're capable of doing it if they believe they can do it.
Wilbert, you understand this on a special level because of Nate Johnson and somebody that obviously you helped Detroit Mercy find their way to. Is an outstanding freshman season for him. So how would you articulate that? How would you articulate the importance of supporting the current group?
Well, one of the things I say is that, it's ironic that you say that. I was talking to a couple of the players the other day, and I said, you guys realize you start winning, these stands will be filled.
Mm.
And they say, for real? I said,
Mm.
well, back when we played, I mean, you had to get early to get a good seat. So,
Yeah.
and I don't think they realize that, because the last, over the years, it's been really, it's more people there this year than last year. But if they start winning, people will come out to see you. And one of the other things, even back in the day when we played, I mean, it was nowhere we could go in the city without people uh, knowing us who
Knowing.
we were.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that came with hard work. It came with winning, because Detroit is a city that supports its winners. I mean, just take Pistons for instance. A few years ago, I mean, the Pistons were losing, and the stands were barely, what hardly ever had any people in there. The other night they were sold out for the playoff game against the Knicks. So that's entirely different. So winning cures a lot of different things in terms of getting recognized and getting fans to come to the game. One of the things I'm glad Coach Montgomery is doing, he's making more of an effort to reach out to some of the former players, which I don't know if you realize this, Dan. Next year would be the 50th year of our NCAA tournament team, 76, 77 year. Well, 76, 77 be 50 years from when we went to the tournament. So I mean, that's a milestone to read. I mean, just think about it. I mean, all of these guys, we still stay in touch with each other after 50 years. So
after 50 years, yeah.
we on a team thread together along with Dick. So we're able to keep in touch with each other and keep in contact with each other. And that's very important to me, and thing, I just wish that, some of the other ones that have gone off the glory were still here with us,
Yeah.
As you get older, you really cherish the moments that you had in the past like that. So
Kevin, what's Dickie V gonna say when he hears about this podcast?
Who's going to tell him? No, I'm sure he'll be tuning in. I think he's, always proud of his previous teams and the players and what they've aspired to do and what they have done, and their legacies will be. But I think when he looks at it, he would say that, these guys speak from the heart, whether it's funny or if it's serious or if it's something quirky, then I think it would take it all in stride, because he would say that's true. I mean, they're not speaking out of line. It's all things that we've done together, or seen him do, and on multiple occasions. So it's not something that's was done in secret. It's all out in the open. And like everyone said too, he wears his emotions on his sleeve.
On his sleeve.
And I think I think he would enjoy hearing it, because I know we text, like Wilbur said, we were on a group text and he's on it and he jumps in all the time, and it's different hearing a voice or seeing a face, but I think he would enjoy it.
Yeah. And also, Dan, I think, it would show, he probably say to himself, he take bragging right, I prepared them well,
I bet he would. And
I prepared them well. He might not say it openly, but in his mind, he'll be thinking it though. That's for sure.
Dan, by the way, he does know about this call because Laval told him.
Very good. Well, and I'm sure he would say that you guys are a big part of why he went on to have the career he had. I mean, it's all a domino effect, right? If he doesn't have the experience he did with Detroit, then it doesn't end up with the Pistons, and it may not end up with doing the broadcasting stuff as long as he had. I didn't realize that you guys were the original diaper dandies. Now I'm curious who inspired the Dipsy Do Dunkaroo and all that stuff.
You got to talk to him about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can't elaborate on that.
Remember at the beginning,
elaborate on that.
I think at the beginning, Jerry said he was one of the greatest marketers around. So maybe he's got a little attaché case full of information on that too. Yeah. So I think he's good at those kind of things, developing those on his own. So he combines the coaching, the outward plus the marketing. It's like because the school was in the red, the program was in the red, and he got into the black because, like I said, when we had 10,000 people the first game our junior year, sitting in the aisles and everywhere. I mean, it's a fire hazard, but he brought such notoriety and appreciation for the school and the game that I mean, he should be commended for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
One other thing, Dan, I don't even realize even back in the day, Dick was going to corporations speaking on motivation even back then.
Back then, yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. Yes, he was.
You guys are such an important part of Titans history, and I hope you guys know that. And to be able to celebrate everything that was, and the fact that we're coming up on 50 years, the fact that we can be together to go back and to reminisce on just exactly what you guys did to get there and how you guys got help from him to get you there. This is special. And I cannot thank all of you enough, because who knows how many chances we get opportunities to do things like this.
Sure.
So Terry, Kevin, Wilbert, Laval, Jerry, this was everything I thought it could be and then some. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to do.
But believe you me, Dan, thank you so much, because I got to see my teammates that I ain't seen in a long, long time. So I deeply, deeply appreciate this, man. It's been fun. Brings back a lot of good memories, you know. And one thing I want to throw in, you know, when he is announcing the game and something's going on the court, I always reflect back and say, well, we wouldn't have done it like that. This is how Dick would have had us do it, you know. So, so he's like I said, he's not never far away from us. That's for sure. That is for sure.
Dan, I just like to thanks for inviting us to the call, because these are my brothers, and
yes,
I
sir.
always love them.
Yep, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
This has been really enjoyable, and like T said, it's we don't see each other, we talk or text, but seeing is a different level, and we appreciate you bringing us all together. And I know we got more gas in the tank for episode number 2.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let us know.
And to that end, I have a feeling there's one person in particular that would really enjoy being on this call. So guys, listen, I can't thank you enough. Really appreciate you all taking the time here on Tighten Up. We don't get chances to do something this unique. So all of you guys being here, really appreciate y'all taking the time.
You bet.
Thank you so much, Dan. Love y'all, man.
Man.
Love you, Will,
love
Kevin,
you guys.
Val. Love you. Love y'all,
Okay,
man.
all right,
Y'all take care. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Love y'all.
All right, bye you guys.